bit better with Glitter Lance than Janna can. And of course, the Whimsy, the W for Lulu, can either be used to speed up Vayne, or it can be used to render Graves ineffective, unable to do anything for 1.5 seconds. So I feel like the trades, only because of Lulu, might go surprisingly in orbit's favor, whereas generally Graves is a pretty good counter to Vayne.
We're going to have to see how it does pan out in the bottom lane. I don't know about you, I'm going to be paying a little bit of attention to that. Glitter Lance, of course, is a very interesting skill in the fact that it's going to pass through all the targets. So if they line them up properly, not only is it going to hit both those targets dealing damage, but Vayne could potentially get a very nice condemn kind of lined up against the wall on either Graves or Janna. So like you said, we just got to pay a little bit more attention to that bottom lane, as we don't necessarily know how it should go, because on paper, like you said, Graves and Janna seem a little bit stronger, but we've seen stranger things come out of this tournament, as Morgana actually coming with the rest of the team, not in the bush. I didn't know if that was on purpose for a second, but now she's actually going to get in there right before Udyr can actually see her. Riven actually going to reveal herself. Here we go. We're going to get jungle invade from TD. You know how much I love these Soterra, so I'm going to be taking the mic for just a little bit longer. Coming down, they are chasing away Yoda's Udyr. Lulu actually having to pop a Whimsy to just avoid that dark binding. So Paradoxical is saying, hey, you know what, Link? I got some really good bindings too, so you got to be a little bit careful in this game, as they are going to be coming in here to steal the blue buff away from Udyr. This is a very strong play because Udyr doesn't necessarily need the blue buff to jungle, but is going to let him go through that much quicker, because all of his stances are already with a low cooldown and low mana cost. If he's going to keep himself at a high amount of mana, he jungles with a high amount of HP too. So that's going to leave him primed for ganks, counter ganks, and counter jungling. So taking this blue buff away from Udyr is a very smart choice. But on the flip side, oRb's just going to come over here and counter jungle away Team Dynamic's blue. But Dynamic does have a ward down, so they know exactly what's going on. We're going to have to see how they respond to this.
I don't think they'll be able to do anything in any sort of meaningful amount of time, just because, you know, obviously they're still top lane. And we do see a lane switch here. It looks like Hoodstomp will be going top with Vayne, so that might make sense as to why Vec was running armor, because maybe he was expecting to go against a 2v1 lane, perhaps.
That could be very interesting. We're going to see. It looks like Riven, though, is going to be in prime position after picking up a blue buff. Once again, I don't like the blue on Riven, but coming in here, getting a gank down onto that Vayne. A stun goes off. Look how much damage. He has to actually pop a cleanse and a flash. Get out of there. Vladimir wants a tower dive, puts the ignite down, taking a lot of random damage for that tower, almost falling himself, but Vayne is going to be a-okay. That ignite will not kill her, as it's only a level 1 ignite. Riven's actually going to have to stay around, though, because Vladimir, after that tower dive, has to go back already. But on the bottom lane, we do see that Vec is going to be a-okay against this Graves, like you said, with a lot of armor in his build. 58 at level 1 with that Cloth Armor 5 health potion star. I think he's going to be doing a-okay against his Graves at the early stages of the game, which is when that 2 versus 1 lane can really kind of hinder a bottom lane solo, because they're just going to lay so much harass down on him. But Shen took a buckshot to the face right there and lost like 40 HP, so I think he's going to be a-okay, Soter.
Yeah, he's going to be better off than a lot of people. Also, it helps that, you know, the early invasion by Team Dynamic certainly, you know, was useful for their team, but since they gave up their own blue in return, and since they allowed Shen to kind of just go against Graves on his own and pick up that quick level 2, it kind of backfired against them. So now they're going to re-swap the lanes here.
I don't know if this is a very smart choice, as Zion Spartan just hitting level 2, because he had to go back after a little bit of a missed tower dive. Shen is going to hit level 3 on top of this, but that, of course, is going to mean that Graves and Janna are losing out on a little experience, but not so too much. Vayne has hit level 3 despite having to go back after that very early harassment and gank from Riven. So just got to see how this pans out. This Vladimir, though, already doing work on Shen, as he's just keeping him under his tower at this point, with the constant harass between Tides of Blood and Transfuse. He's only level 2 at this point, and Shen's already playing extremely passive against him. Well, actually, he's going to prove me completely wrong at this point, as he goes in with a taunt on him. Vladimir has not leveled up that pool yet, so Shen could take this early opportunity to lay some harass down on Vladimir, just kind of push him back and potentially pick up a kill under tower with that taunt. Meanwhile, up top, we do see that Graves with a shield on him is going to be last hitting and doing a-okay against this Vayne and Lulu combo. Vayne actually deciding to go back yet again. She is out of health potions, so that's going to be a very high point of contention, as neither of these support characters have a sustained heal for their carry. This is going to prompt Janna actually do some harass down onto Lulu. Graves going to come in dashing, getting a buckshot and a couple auto attacks off. Lulu's getting dangerously low, but she is not going to fall, just be harassed backwards and possibly having to recall herself. So now you know, both teams, Vladimir had to go back quite a lot at the beginning of the game. Now the range carrying support from oRb have to go back, and these two lanes just kind of swapping at what each other's doing.
Right, and it looks like, you know, Shen's runes are going to pay off, because especially if you're not going to be in lane a lot of the time, if you're going to keep on doing all these swaps, then, you know, you may as well have the runes that are giving you that money passively. So it has been a pretty exciting, pretty close game so far. Ryze getting a little bit punished middle. Looks like Nintendo Dex stopped by there, but Paradoxical kind of just having his own way in middle. 42 CS to 20 for Ryze, so
wow,
more than doubling him.
Yeah, and Morgana already has level 3 of that Tormented, so she's going to be farming up a lot. Shen looked to be in a little bit of a tight spot, has to taunt to get out of there. Was a smoke screen down from Graves and Janna, and I don't know about you, but Graves and Janna don't seem to mind any of these lane swaps whatsoever. It's Vladimir that's having a real hard time, as he's actually going to be calling a little bit of help from Riven, getting a gank down here, but oRb knows exactly what's up with TD's gank coming in here, as they did have that tri-bush warded. So TD, I don't know if they're going to be able to get a successful gank off on this, so Riven's actually losing a little bit of time just waiting in that bush. You see Udyr is not that far away. Glitter Lance harassment going down on Vladimir. Vayne knows that Riven is there, actually trying to bait her out there. That was pretty smart. And now TD is going to have to fall back. Udyr actually not trying to capitalize on this yet, although we do see him starting to move around towards the river, but he looks like he might loop up towards middle. Riven is going to try to go in here, but gets condemned out of the way. Now getting polymorph with that Whimsy, and then a Glitter Lance going down. So she's just going to fall back and realize she really can't do anything to that Lulu and Vayne in the bottom lane right now.
Yeah. And a counter gank here from that Udyr, who's just going to actually run by the Riven. Just a drive-by bear stance in the face, and heads on back. Ooh, a nice Dark Binding middle from Morgana. And Morgana, in addition to being really far ahead in the CS, did hit that level 6 first. That is important, although Ryze just hit his level 6 as well. So a little bit of an equalizing there. But that lane is going, you know, significantly in Morgana's favor so far.
Ryze actually had to go back before he had enough gold to pick up his Tear of the Goddess, which is normally something a Ryze doesn't want to do. You normally want to try to farm up as much as possible so he can get that Tear, go back to lane with full mana, and continue to spam out the spells with some mana regeneration under your belt, so that you can therefore trade blows with an enemy AP carry in the middle, using Overload not only to last hit, but also to harass on the enemy champion. But Ryze had to go back before he gets that, so he is going to be graced with a blue buff from Udyr now. It's about 7.5 minutes. All the buffs on the map should be respawning relatively soon, minus the red buffs. Those are probably coming up in about a minute, if not a couple seconds less than that. So Ryze with a blue buff now that will replace the fact he does not have his Tear of the Goddess on his first bag. He is going to be able to sustain himself with extra mana regeneration and cooldown reduction, and now he's going to be able to farm himself into those items: Catalyst to Protector, Tear of the Goddess, and those basically standard Ryze items. But we do see TD actually going for another early dragon. Not very early, it's about 8 minutes into the game at this point. Last game we saw a dragon contention about 7 minutes, so these fairly early dragons seem to be a staple, as nobody knows what they're doing. All these lane switches coming out, and I guess no one really knows where anyone else is on the map at this point. So T Dynamic taking a very uncontested dragon, getting them a little bit of a gold lead, 9.7k to 8.6k at about 8.5 minutes into the game.
Yeah, certainly, and you know, up until that point, it seemed like the lane swaps were slightly favoring Orbit, but now that that dragon went the other way, I mean, that everything kind of backfired on them. Of course, like just a few moments ago, the lanes were swapped. Orbit had the 2v1 advantage down bottom, so they would have had, you know, more dragon control, but they did not. Vayne is, you know, still punishing Vladimir up top, and Zion Spartan still probably does not want that matchup. Down bottom, Shen doing a little bit better against his 2v1, actually going on the offensive, trying to taunt Graves in tower range. But at this point, Graves has a Vampiric Scepter. He's going to be able to withstand just about all the damage that Shen can put out.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that despite all these lane swaps and everything, the CS for both teams is relatively similar, except for the fact that Graves has a little bit more CS than that Vayne. The top, like the quote-unquote top laners are actually Shen's going to be getting a taunt down onto this Janna. Actually, a Knight goes off, picking up first blood. I thought she was going to use a shield or something, but I guess it was on cooldown. Now Shen might wind up paying for this, though. He's going to take a lot of damage. Riven ultimate is not going to finish him off. Popping some health potions to sustain himself just enough to live. He is super low at this point, but you know, like I was saying, both of those top laners kind of are about even at this point, but a kill for Shen is going to be very, very powerful, but he is going to lose a tower in response to this.
Right, so that, I don't know if that actually makes it worthwhile.
Ooh, middle lane though, there's a flash going out from Morgana. Ryze actually responding with a rune prison. The shield goes off, she's absorbing damage. Ryze is super, super low. One auto attack and he's dead, but he gets the overload off just in time. So there is a kind of double kill in the middle. Not necessarily a double kill in the natural sense, but each other were killing each other. Shen actually went back to base and it looks like teleported up top with an ultimate to Vayne. Was very, very low. I didn't actually catch a chance to see what was going on up top there, but Shen all of a sudden appeared in the top lane. I was going to wonder, with all these lane swaps going in, when that Shen ultimate was going to be coming into play here to just make the swapping even more insane. But he came up to the top lane after all that stuff going on in the middle, and now 2 kills to 1 in favor of oRb. They have a slight gold disadvantage though because of that dragon from TD and the tower from TD in response to the kill on the Janna from Shen on the bottom lane. So pretty much even out all around. Graves does have a CS lead over Vayne despite all the lane swaps and everything going on, as we see Graves and Janna now finally motioning themselves back up top, which prompts Lulu and Vayne to recall and go bottom lane. So still constantly swapping the lanes at this point. I can't imagine that this is going to be beneficial for oRb for much longer into the game.
Yeah, it would be hard for you to say that it would be beneficial for them, because now they're just losing turrets left and right. They lost bottom turret, looks like top turret was about to go down. TD does have to back off there, is a little bit worried about Shen, but you know, they were kind of corralling him, were pinching him in with Nintendo decks coming in on Riven. And I don't know, you know, for a while it certainly was really going poorly for Vladimir, but at this point he's doing quite a bit of damage to Vayne, so Vayne has to be a little bit more careful now. Doesn't have that Shen ultimate to save her.
The thing is, Vladimir, like we mentioned in the game before this, his weak spot is in the beginning stage of the game before he gets any of the sustain. But now with a Hextech Revolver on him, he is going to be able to sustain himself a-okay just no matter how much damage Vayne is doing at this point in the game. Vayne is more of a mid to late game carry, one of those quote-unquote hyper carry characters because of her Silver Bolt passive, dealing a majority of her damage in percentage of HP. Vladimir at this level can sustain himself off that Hextech Revolver and will be gaining HP off of his ability power, but it's not to the point where he has 2,000 or 3,000 HP yet. To the point where he has like 1 point something K HP, and Silver Bolt's at level 1, it's not going to be taking a huge advantage of that. So Vayne's not going to be effectively trading with this Vladimir now that Vladimir has a sustain in his Hextech Revolver.
Yeah, certainly, and the top turret does go down, so that is just some more global gold. Now over 2,000 gold in the lead is Team Dynamic there. That being said, oh my goodness, and they might take this blue too. It looks like they will. It might be contested, but will not likely be successfully contested, as there are 4 members from Team Dynamic up there. Yes, oRb does just decide to back away. They're going to continue farming. Now, Ryze is significantly behind on farm, but between Vayne and Ryze, they have the probably best late game carries in their respective positions. So certainly if they can get this into late game without too big of a gold disadvantage, they can turn this one around. Of course, if they don't turn around, then they, you know, lose the series, as Team Dynamic did take game 1.
Yeah, this is true. And Dynamic having a much more potent early game they did before. Vladimir, we saw in the meantime, getting attacked by 3 different champions on the bottom lane. Although he can sustain himself against a Lulu and a Vayne in the bottom lane, you really can't account for those drive-by bear stance ganks like you were talking about before. So Vladimir did unfortunately fall. He's actually pushed all the way up to where the bottom tower used to be on oRb side of the map. So he is very, very far overextended, and that's one thing that Udyr does very well, is punish champions that are overextended with his incredible move speed and the hard CC and the stun. But now we see TD is going to come over here and take their own blue buff. Could we possibly see a refresh on the Morgana, or just giving it away to Riven to give her a little more experience and cooldown reduction? I don't know. Could we see Janna taking it? Nope, Johnny, you're not going to get that one. That's going to go to Bunny Girl Riven over here as Nintendo X picking up his blue buff. Motioning over towards Dragon. There was about an 8.5-minute Dragon attempt, so this will be respawning within the next seconds, Soter.
Next now, yeah, and it is unfortunate. As a support, you never get that blue buff, no matter what. Someone will want it, even if it's just for the cooldowns. Riven, of course, does appreciate the CDR, but isn't energy based, isn't really anything based. So she's only using it for the CDR. That being said, still decided to go towards her as opposed to a support. Of course, the extra gold from blue buff does help as well. And it looks like there might be a challenge down here for Dragon. Meanwhile, up top, Shen and Vladimir are kind of going at it. Of course, Team Dynamic has to be very careful, because Shen can instantly or teleport down to Dragon with Stand United, whereas Vladimir, on the other hand, would have to run all the way down there. Oh, but up top, there is quite a bit of aggression between Vladimir and Shen.
Shen takes Vladimir down here. That could be pivotal, as that Dragon fight will be a 4 versus 5. Vladimir's going to try to turn back on this, but Dragon fight has been contested. TD is going to take it down, but a Rune Prison goes down onto Riven, repositioning with Janna's ultimate. Morgana ultimate goes off, does tag Riven, Vayne over the wall. Cool, and a very well-placed Dark Binding will pick her up. So that is a kill for Nothing Real's Graves. Looks like he's going to try to head off. Orb links Ryze down here in the bottom. Ryze might get a Rune Prison off. Could be dealing a lot of damage to Graves. Graves, without his support at this point, will be chasing after him, but he's just going to walk away unscathed at that point. So a kill goes towards TD, a Dragon goes towards TD, and Vladimir pushes Shen out of the lane. And I just want to point out, so this is probably the first time we're seeing Vladimir and Shen in their respective lane against each other, and Vladimir came out on top of Shen on that point.
Well, he did come out on top, but that's a little bit unfair because Shen was attempting to stand United down to bottom lane and was, you know, a free target for quite a while there. And, of course, used up a lot of energy in the course of that. So certainly not a fair matchup between the two. The one thing that is going for Orbit at this time is they're running quite a few GP10 items. They have 2 on Udyr, 2 on Lulu, 1 on Shen, and of course Shen is also running those gold per 10 quintessences. So they are making passive money, but as we see in the global gold count, it is not quite enough, as they are 4,000 gold behind thanks to those 2 dragons. They are 2 turrets behind.
3
towers,
behind.
yeah.
Yeah, so that is a lot of gold being made up. Actually, I've taken a quick look. It's about a 4K, maybe a little less, more like a 3.8K gold disadvantage for them. They are ahead by 1 kill, and that's actually with 3 turrets down. I wouldn't necessarily. I think that'd be more money at this point in the game, but I guess the double GP10, like you said, and then the gold quintessences on Shen make it up a little bit of that differential. Speaking of Shen, he's going down on Zion Spartan very, very hard. Vec dealing lots of damage. Spartan actually popping the Hemo Plague, does not want to pop the pool yet. Getting a transfuse down on Shen. Shen's actually not going to take a lot of damage from that, because Spartan was just kind of trying to force him away at the ultimate, not pick up a kill. Although Shen is going to recall because of this, but meanwhile in the middle lane, TD just continuing to push down turrets, now with a 4th one under their belt. Graves with a red buff is a very, very scary sight for anybody on the opposing team, especially a Vayne that unfortunately does not have as much farm as he does because of all this lane swapping going on. Because of this, we see that Vayne has decided to go for a Zeal first with only 1 Doran's Blade in addition to a Vampiric Scepter, whereas over here we see that Graves, in addition to that red buff, picked himself up a pickaxe, a BF sword, 2 Doran's Blades, and a Vampiric Scepter. So he's dishing out a massive amount of damage in comparison. Ooh, Vayne is going to get caught, though, here. Looks like there's a Riven and a Janna waiting in the wake. She's actually going to get to a little bit above half HP before the rest of her team meets up with them, and Nintendo X and Pixel going to have to get out of there. So, very nice job of deterring what could have been a disastrous gank for oRb, as TD's forced out of the enemy jungle and kind of back towards their own lanes. We do see Morgana and Janna kind of sticking around a little bit over here. Levitation barely, he did actually get snared by that one. I'm kind of surprised. It looked like it landed right on top of Lulu, but I guess the range was just not far enough, as now we see Zion Spartan's going to be taking the enemy blue buff. There's just so much stuff going on, as TD is all over the map at this point. This Shen's going to be going in, getting a taunt down. Janna's going to come up here. Ryze is going to blow all his spells trying to kill that Golem over here. Riven's going to burn a flash, as Shen is going to just dash out of there to be A-OK. So lots of spells going around the map, Sotair, but not a lot of stuff coming out from it.
Right, and we see bottom lane Graves with that red buff, with his natural advantage, able to push Vayne out of the lane, take down the turret there as well.
We kind of forgot about Graves.
Yeah, forgot about him. Where was he?
He was down there with his little gentleman's cap on and his Mafia cigar and coat and everything, and he's dealing about 200 damage, 199 AD at this point in the game. Like I said, Vayne not nearly dealing anywhere as that much, 160 on her at the Zeal, so that lane swap for oRb didn't really pan out for them, and they're going to have to be in kind of turtle defensive mode at this point, no pun intended with the Udyr on their team. They're going to have to try to turtle up at this point and let their goal advantage kind of kick in. Like you said, it's about 20 minutes into the game now, so those quintessences on Shen should be doing their work at this point. Those double GP10 items on both Udyr and Lulu should also be kicking in at this point, and unless they can really kind of defend against this relentless aggression and just overall map dominance by Team Dynamic, they're going to find themselves in a hard spot.
Right, and really what is going to happen now, it is on 20 minutes here, and Baron will be in play relatively shortly,
Hmm.
and Team Dynamic just has such huge map awareness advantage here. We just see a ward go down for Team oRb, but that might be the only one in that bush. It does give them kind of good sight on Baron. We'll let them know if Team Dynamic goes towards it, but meanwhile Orbit has the opposite, or rather Team Dynamic has Orbit's jungle warded up pretty well, and they're really just forcing their early game advantage down the throats of Team Orbit because they know that is what they really have going for them. Graves certainly better early game, Morgana better early game than Ryze, and they, each of those lanes have won significantly. They are 30 and 50 CS up ahead respectively, so they certainly took advantage, and now they really just want to keep going on with that advantage, try to pick up this Baron, which they looks like they are positioning for.
Yeah, they're actually just kind of waiting in this bush. Janna has an Oracle's Elixir, so she's been clearing out wards. That means that oRb knows that the team is around there. Ryze, you got to be very careful. Morgana actually giving away the position. Ryze is about to walk towards that bush, too, but she could possibly land a very nice Dark Binding here. Actually spell immune against that Glitter Lance, but misses field goal between Udyr and Ryze there. So paradoxical, not landing a Dark Binding, much like Link in the last game. I think that was one of the first or second ones I've actually seen him miss. So both Morgana players spot on with these Dark Bindings, but now that Dragon has respawned, they're going to rotate around and take this Dragon. It's actually going to die about as quick as a minion at this point. So 27.5 minutes, we'll see Dragon respawn, and now oRb actually pushing down this middle lane, trying to take a tower in response. They're actually going to get caught out of position from behind by TD. Look at Lemonation getting instantly blown up by that Vladimir. Hemo play goes down. Vayne taking a bit of damage. Flash from Morgana. Ultimate is not going to land on anybody because all the flashes from oRb were expended here. There's a nice Dark Binding onto Shen at this point. Riven's ultimate goes off, but picking up a kill on Lemonation, forcing Udyr at very low HP to go over here by the red buff to try to farm this up. That is going to prompt TD to take a Baron now. 3-3. Not a lot of kills on either side at this point in the game, but 5 towers leading to a huge gold advantage, a huge item advantage, and just really, really good positioning going for that Dragon. That Janna Oracles was completely leaving oRb in the dark, so they had no idea where TD was coming from. Came from behind, picked up a kill on the support, and it prompted them into a Baron. So at about 22.5 minutes into this game, TD looks to have a commanding position in this one, Soter.
Oh yes, oh my goodness. And Shen, was like, okay, well I know they're taking Baron, there's nothing we can do
Oh no, he
about
fails
that.
the taunt over the wall too. He could be caught here.
He could be. He was really wanted that mid turret, was putting himself in danger, but really was not getting very much for it. Of course, he will have that taunt again. We'll probably get away from this. Yeah, they're not likely to catch him, despite the fact that he doesn't have Ghost.
I don't know. We could see a Shen sandwich here, though, for the land of another binding down on him. He got one over the wall before. Morgana actually, no, he's taunting through it. So very nice dodge there by Shen.
He's faster than light. You can't hit him with a Dark Binding. Doesn't work. Ninjas tell you this all the time, and it was held true that time. But, I mean, his team is in a lot of trouble, Ninja or no. 8,000 gold down, a Baron buff down, and they don't really have that many turrets to protect their base anymore, which is a very bad thing.
No, not at all. And now we see that oRb once again in the position that they were last game. Vayne now finally picking up a BF sword, so she has a little bit of damage on her side. But Udyr has not completed his wit's end at this point, just with a recurve bow. Shen building tanky, has the items for a Randuin's Omen, possibly even a Sunfire Cape or some sort of Frozen Mallet, and then he has a Negatron Cloak, so he's just picking up pieces of tanky items to make him tanky to survive this fight. Udyr now actually picks up his wit's end, but they don't have a lot of damage on their side. Graves has an Infinity Edge and a Zeal. Morgana rushed that Zanya's Hourglass and is now going for a Death Cap. That Riven actually has a BF sword, going to be turning that into a Bloodthirster relatively shortly. And Vladimir even will in the Ancients and pieces for a Death Cap at this point. They just have so much more damage than oRb, and this is just kind of what the pattern they fell into last game was.
And they're going to take down this inhibitor, and I don't think, there's nothing really they really can do about it. Going to give up that inhibitor. Of course, now Shen could teleport back to base, but he's kind of at a disadvantage here in the sense that his team doesn't want to fight anyway. But they're going to take towers a lot faster than Shen is taking these towers.
Yeah.
Shen, not the greatest split pusher, unless he has a Wit's End and a Sunfire Cape and other offensive items. He does get that tower, but it took him quite a while. And Team Dynamic takes a inner tower quite a bit faster than that, and they could potentially continue pushing down here. They do set Vlad up top to you know, help that minion wave along, and they're just going to keep on camping up there. Certainly, you know, that Shen might be worrisome to them, but I think they feel like they can push this advantage to get another inhibitor out of this, and yeah, there's really no reason they wouldn't be able to.
No, not at all. Like you said, Shen was split pushing that one turret, but in the meantime, they got a turret inhibitor and a second turret. So I think TD has a little bit of advantage in that pushing situation. Actually, Shen over here with a little bit of Rain Man syndrome. Rain Man known to be pushing the lanes by himself on characters that shouldn't be doing it, Shen being one of these. He is finally going to wind up teleporting back into base, actually recalling back into base. So now he is in this fight. It's a 5 versus 5, but at this point, they have already lost 2 inhibitors, and now TD threatening to end the game at this point as they could press on to these inhibitors. They have creeps in the base. Another wave coming down with super minions. Riven has her ultimate popped up. She's going to be taking chunks of damage out of these towers. Look at that, left and right, popping the ultimate on the people with no damage on them just to use it before it gets used up. They're just constantly pushing oRb further and further back into their base. This could possibly be the last engagement as Graves is going to just instantly melt down Ryze. Morgana going to die, but she pops Lasagna's Hourglass, prompting a kill onto that Lulu. Shen's going to pop the ultimate, but it's not going to do anything. Vex very, very low. Hood Stomp is low. Hood Stomp will fall to Zion Spartan. Udyr Yoda is not going to do anything at this point in the game. TD is getting kind of low, but looks like there are heals going off. They're going to be okay. Taking a second Nexus turret down. They could take the Nexus at this point in time. Shen's going to get binding in the fountain area. That is going to prompt TD to just continue to push that on the Nexus, and they're going to take this series, Soter, 2-0 over Orbit Gaming. Monomatic Esports, now known as Team Dynamic, making a dynamic showing in the playLEGENDS tournament.
Yeah, they really did a great job there, and it's just incredible that Vladimir so much damage, and that's 2 games in a row. Like, I guess you have to do something else to deal with Vladimir, and we saw that in IPL 4 too. Dyrus was just dominant